Are you eligible to receive election funding after a federal election or by-election? Recent changes in legislation affect how you can claim and receive funding. New legislation came into effect on the 1st of January 2019. As a result, election funding is essentially limited to demonstrated electoral expenditure. Because this is an important change, we will take you through election funding eligibility and entitlement, payments including automatic payments, making a claim, important timings, and retention of records. After an election, the Australian Electoral Commission distributes money to eligible political parties, candidates and Senate groups to reimburse them for electoral expenditure. To be eligible and receive election funding, candidates must receive at least 4% of the total number of formal first preference votes in an election. The AEC will then automatically pay $10,000 indexed to the agent of each eligible political party, candidate or Senate group. Payment will be made shortly after 20 days after polling day. There is no need to make a claim. The AEC will determine the indicative value of the election funding entitlement based on the votes counted at 20 days after polling day. Your entitlement will be calculated by multiplying the formal first preference votes by the current election funding rate. To receive election funding greater than the automatic payment, the agent will need to make a claim setting out electoral expenditure incurred. For a political party, candidate or member of the Senate group, electoral expenditure is generally any expenditure incurred with its authority in relation to an election. There is no defined time period in which the expenditure must be incurred, so long as it can be demonstrated to be in relation to an election. The amount payable will be whichever is less, the demonstrated expenditure or the entitlement. To make a claim for more than the automatic payment, you'll need to use the approved AEC claim form. You will have the opportunity to lodge an interim claim, which may not include all your electoral expenditure, and a final claim at a later date once you have determined your total claimed expenditure. When preparing the claim amount, you will need to specify whether the claim is an interim claim or a final claim. A final claim will need to include any previous interim claim. Election funding can be distributed to one or more people. Where election funding is paid to more than one person, you will need to specify the percentages payable to each. You will need to provide details of electoral expenditure incurred. However, invoices are not required. You have a choice of either completing the table or attaching a printout from your accounting system. If you want to claim more than the automatic payment, you can lodge a claim from 20 days after polling day, but no later than 6 months after polling day. The critical timing for payment is 20 days after the AEC receives a claim. Within that 20-day period, the AEC must decide whether to accept or reject the claim and calculate the amount payable. While you will not need to submit invoices with the claim, you will need to keep all records associated with a claim for election funding. These must be kept for 5 years after polling day. A claim may be reviewed by the AEC after the funding has been paid. The review may examine accounts, records and documents relating to the expenditure referred to in the claim. If the AEC becomes satisfied that there was an overpayment and decides to vary the decision, the excess funds may be recovered as a debt due to the Commonwealth. So, if you're eligible to receive election funding, you will receive an automatic payment after an election, and then you will need to follow the AEC's claims process. For more information, including the election funding guide and claim form, visit the election funding page of the AEC website. Authorised by the Electoral Commissioner, Canberra.